This spring program for me is celebrating many things. Of course, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of Serge Diaghilev and his ballet Russe, of which Les Noces is a very significant piece of work. When you put Les Noces and Valses Poeticos or Round of Angels or Carousel against each other, you're going to come out with very different styles of dancing. All of these pieces will take us on different journeys and let us feel different emotions with each piece. The story of Les Noces is, it means wedding. There's a quote from Bronislava Nijinská about her work, and I quote, "No question of love entered into it. How can it be possible for two such creatures to feel rejoicing?"
This was not a chosen marriage. This was about a girl basically being sold into a marriage.
Nijinská is making a statement about how a woman is expected to give herself to a man and sacrifice much of what makes her a woman.
It was her way of trying to, I guess, push back against the system. She felt that Russian peasant women had always suffered.
Diaghilev came up with a lot of the ideas for these ballets. It's amazing to note that she was the only choreographer that he never interfered with. With all the other, even Massin and Fokine, he would interfere and say, no, I want it this way, I want it that way. With Bronislava, he let her be.
Bronislava Nijinská was the sister of Valses Nijinsky. I think the difference with her choreography is first of all, it's on point for the women. So she was using classical vocabulary. She took point work, but instead of rotating your legs out, she made everything very parallel so that it had a very flat edge to it. It's very interesting because not many people have ever used that before or even afterwards, where to have a whole ballet where it's so parallel. Unlike Nijinsky, what Nijinsky was asking us to do is turn back in on ourselves.
But Nijinská also was very much wanting to promote and continue on where her brother left off. You have the bride in Les Noces having these very, very long braids, much like the chosen one in Rite of Spring. And neither of these women had a choice. They were victims of fate.
And this element with these long, long braids of the bride, it's as if the plaits that she has in her hair are just, social bondage.
When the girls in the third tableau fold up the braids and they place them over the head of the bride, that actually symbolizes the removal of her hair.
The cutting of the hair, the cutting of the braids, again kind of represents her femininity being removed in some way, her beauty being sort of taken away.
There is just no emotion in the ballet at all, and she didn't want any emotion. She wanted the movement to say everything.
And the whole intent, I think, was to get a sense of the inner feelings without it having been expressed on their faces.
The drama comes from the construction of the choreography. It was more than just entertainment, it was a statement. It was a social, political point of view about the treatment of peasant women in Russia. And she didn't see marriage as a happy event at all.
I listen to a lot of music when I am in the mood to choreograph. How can I say that? When I just fell on this music, I knew immediately that this is something that I wanted to do.
I was lucky enough that Helgi choreographed the ballet on me.
Sabina and Ashley worked together very, very closely. It was a great partnership. I just fed off that in my choreography when I started choreographing for them. For me, it was segments of two people's lives, how they interact with one another. It was almost like, for me, love letters going back and forth between two individuals.
When you're thinking about someone and you write a letter to someone, what does that fill you with?
I just tried to show different aspects of a love story between two young people.
Well, I didn't know I was going to do Round of Angels. I'd always loved the Mahler piece, the Adagietto from the Fifth Symphony. And it was a very special piece to me. And it came out of a deep, deep sorrow and a loss of a very close friend, James Howell, who had been my assistant for at least 20 years. After the loss of someone very close to you, you eat, but you really don't taste anything, and you function, but you're really sort of an automaton. So Round of Angels is very special in that it embodies the bereavement and depth of what I felt for a loved one.
Carousel is a great American story. It is the story of a young girl who falls in love with a not-so-good guy.
What I did was I chose one very short moment in this much larger story to make the work around. It's essentially just about a boy and girl meeting at a fairground and what happens. So really the challenge was to create the fairground using bodies, using the human body.
The company are really the structure of the carousel.
The ballet starts with a very slow moving circle of bodies, and the idea being that it's the carousel kind of winding up, you know, the machinery beginning, but also kind of the heartbeats of this romance between Julie and Billy.
And you can hear musically and choreographically how it's tentative, unknowing. Within a short space of time, we're taken on the story of how that nervousness and lack of trust turns into trust and into a young, innocent love.
I think what's interesting is the way that Ashley Wheater has juxtaposed these very different ideas of the coming together of a man and a woman. And you know, I'm quoting Balanchine here. He always said that, you know, a good program at the ballet should be an appetizer, an entree, and then a dessert. And Carousel is most definitely, you know, a big dessert.